I'm Shannon Thrasher, and this is 30-Second Tactics. Today, like the title mentions, I'm going to talk about malfunctions in your firearms that aren't necessarily caused by your firearm. Now, before I even get into that, let's talk about, malfunctions, which guns are going to jam or malfunction or have a stoppage, whatever terminology you like, more often. Now, of course, there are some people out there that will tell you, oh, revolvers never jam, revolvers never malfunction. Well, I'm here to tell you, absolutely not true. When you have shot as much as I have, and you've shot as many different guns with as many different ammos over the years, I mean, I've been shooting since the 1970s, guys. Most of you, or a lot of you watching, weren't even born when I started shooting. And I'll tell you, I've had malfunctions with the revolvers. Now, they're not nearly as common as it is with semi-automatics, but they do exist. Pump shotguns, something else that hardly ever malfunctions. Bolt action rifles, something that hardly ever malfunctions. But I've seen it all, and I'm not going to bore you with all the stories, but I mean, anything you can think of, I've seen it firsthand. I've seen guys rack the bolt on a bolt action gun and the empty case flies up in the air and falls back down into the loading area facing the wrong way and blocks the chamber. It's just anything you can think of, I've seen it. So it happens. But not really what the video is about. Let's talk about malfunctions that are not caused by your firearm. And again, talking about my experience, I've worked as an instructor for years. I've worked at ranges, private and military and law enforcement ranges. I've worked at gun stores. I've heard every excuse in the book about why a person's handgun or gun in general is malfunctioning. And I'll just say up front, yeah, a lot of times it can be the firearm. It can be dirty or broken or cheaply made or out of spec or worn out or whatever. But there's basically three main reasons that your firearm might not work that aren't the firearm's fault. And the first one's going to be ammunition. And I could break that down into a few different areas too. The first one being, and I'll kind of group a couple things into that too, the quality of the ammunition. It might be old ammunition, it might be dented ammunition, it might have been some ammunition that the primers weren't sealed properly and some oil or water leaked in there and killed the primer. It might be reloaded ammunition that's underloaded or loaded or overloaded or not loaded quite to spec. It could even be something as ridiculous as the wrong caliber. And you say, oh, well, you're not going to load the wrong caliber in your gun. Believe me, I've seen it many times. I've seen, when I worked at indoor ranges, we would sweep up the brass and I would always see 9mm casings on the ground that were really swollen out at the end. You could tell exactly what happened is somebody shot a 9mm in a 40. They loaded and the mag didn't notice it. And it will usually fire, but it'll malfunction the gun and it'll deform the case. But anyway, not to go down that rabbit hole. So, bad ammo. The other thing is going to be simply underpowered ammo. Some guns are designed to fire very hot, very high power ammo. One comes to mind as a Desert Eagle. I've had guys tell me, oh, I shot a Desert Eagle, it was junk, it jammed all the time. Well, they're made to shoot pretty hot ammo. The 357 and 44 models, they will not shoot wimpy ammo, they will not shoot low ammo, they will not shoot low weight ammo. If you have the 44 model and it's clean and oiled and you're shooting, high power 240 grain 44 Magnum, I can almost guarantee it's going to run smooth. But like I said, a lot of semi-automatic guns, whether they're blowback or delayed blowback or some sort of delay, roller, whatever you want to say, gas operated, whatever they are, they use the energy created by that little explosion to function the gun. And if that little explosion is too little, or the resistance to that explosion is too little because the bullet's too light, then you're not within the specs the gun was designed to operate in, and the gun may not function right. So another reason that the firearm might fail, and it's not the firearm's fault, and this is common, is magazine issues. A lot of us like to spend a lot of money on a gun, but then not a lot of money on magazines. So you might run the same 1 or 2 magazines you have for the gun over and over and over again, and they wear out. Or you do a lot of tactical type training and they get dropped a lot. They hit on the pavement and the gravel and everything else, or they get mud and dirt in them or something. And the lips get bent, debris gets in them, they get, you over clean them or over oil them, so now they're wet with oil and the dust gets in there, and what's, dust is just dirt, and what is dirt or sand, when it's sticking to the oil, it turns into sandpaper, it starts wearing parts out. So malfunction or can be caused by broken or wore out or, just cheaply made magazines. The magazine that comes with your gun is probably the best magazine for that gun. There are a lot of aftermarket mags, and of course it depends on the gun. There are some companies like Megar that make outstanding quality aftermarket mags. In fact, Megar makes a lot of the original mags for the companies for guns that you have that you don't even realize it, because it might say, company X on the side, but it was actually made by Megar for that company. But then again, there are some companies out there that make cheap mags that are, barely functional when they're new and they wear out quick. And then the last of the three big topics I see for reasons the weapon's malfunctioning is the shooter himself. Whether that is like the shooter failing to do maintenance, like the gun's not properly cleaned, it's not properly oiled, it's not even properly assembled. I've seen that before. Put it together wrong and complain why it doesn't work. The way you shoot the gun, whether you probably heard the term limp wristing, when you don't support the gun enough against the recoil. Again, a semi-automatic handgun, the powder goes bang, the slide goes back, the bullet goes out, the spring overpowers the recoil, pushes the slide back forward. That's how you get the gun to function, in a very layman's terms description. But if you interrupt one of those processes by allowing the gun to move back in your hand too much, it takes the energy away from that recoil. The slide doesn't make it all the way back to the rear. The spring takes over early, and you end up with all types of different malfunctions, from failure to eject to failure to feed. So that can be an issue. Not so much common, but still it can be the way you're gripping it. You might be gripping it tight enough, but on the semi-automatics where the slide's moving back and forth, you might be gripping in a way where some of your hand or your thumb or something is dragging on the slide, and again, taking away that energy that explosion produced, and then that gun needs to function properly. So anyway, guys, that's kind of down and dirty. There's a few reasons with a few subcategories of why a malfunctioning firearm might have nothing to do with the firearm. It might have to do with one of those other things. So some stuff to think about in case you or your friends have some problems with the guns. Maybe diagnose some of those things before you, run back to the gun store or the manufacturer and say, hey, my gun doesn't work. It might work just fine under better circumstances. So anyway, guys, that's what I have for you this time. As always, work, train, repeat. Stay safe.